Talking about high-speed personal development. Hi, I'm Tom Justin. Thanks for joining us. I believe you will find this presentation life-enhancing. Be sure to stay with us until the end of this short presentation, as I have some special gifts for you as well. You're about to discover the key to a code used by some of the most successful people in history. I can't guarantee how long this information will be available, so please turn off your phone, email, and eliminate any other distractions that will keep you from this vital presentation. But first, I have to ask forgiveness. See, I spent many years calling myself a motivational speaker, and I thought motivation was all about personal development, greater individual and business growth, and I got pretty good at it too. I got standing ovations, pats on the back, hugs from strangers, and some great business deals as a result of my seminars. People were excited. They were motivated. The energy of the audience exploded as they left the auditoriums. Think I'm bragging? Well, not so much today. Why do I need to apologize for that? It took me years to realize that motivation was excitement, and excitement feels great. Please forgive this analogy, but excitement is like great sex with a bad partner. The event is fantastic, and the aftermath, not so much. Have you ever wondered why you didn't see certain things in your life that you think should have been obvious at the time? Sure, we all have. Prior to my speaking career, I'd become highly aware and very interested in the powers of the mind. What drove me was my interest in personal development in all areas of life. What I was missing was the real power that makes personal development work: inspiration. What I came to realize was the enormous difference between inspiration and excitement. To find inspiration is like finding gold. Inspiration is a driving force that sustains great ideas and actualizes motivation to the highest levels. This is far beyond positive thinking. Can you recall great ideas or thoughts you've had in the past? Maybe a book you could write, or an invention no one else had thought about, maybe even a new business you could start. At least one of those times you probably got excited, just like most of us have, only to see it diminish and disappear in time. Think of the greatest success you've ever had in life. Wasn't the foundation of that a sense of inspiration that drove you until you got it? Inspiration later dovetailed with another key word for me. This is important because the other key word, the other I word, is intuition. When intuition and inspiration are mixed together, they can create what sometimes feels like magic. My acronym for magic is manifestation according to God's infinite creativity. Whether you know it or not, intuition drives inspiration and creativity. When you learn to listen to it, great possibilities increase in your life for happiness, well-being, success, and creativity. And you're about to learn how to activate the most powerful self-development tool in the world. But it will do you no good if you get excited but can't find the inspiration to manifest it more fully in your daily life, and that's part of what we're doing here today. Your commitment? Only a few minutes of your time. What happens when you're faced with a critical decision but you don't have enough information? It could be a major problem, or it could be urgent, like reacting in an emergency. Your finances, job, family, maybe even your life could be at stake. What do you do when you don't have enough information, but you must act? Choices. Even no decision is a decision. Should you buy, sell, stay, leave, trust, don't trust? A code is available that you can use to unlock the doorways to greater creativity and release the dynamic insight that will allow you to read people whether you know them or not. Now, this can also raise your level of consciousness and create more rewarding relationships. Many who know this secret gain that dynamic insight, which becomes their greatest protection and success tool. With this code, you can become bolder and more decisive, radiating an aura of confidence and authority that will astound your friends and associates. Accessing this code will give you the edge, increasing your odds of saying just the right thing or making the best life-changing decisions at just the right time. By the end of this presentation, you will be able to activate your own personal code within minutes. Whether you're negotiating a multi-million-dollar deal, starting a business, or going for a raise at work, knowing this code can guide you to get what you want in ways you wouldn't have imagined. And using this code is really quite natural. I want you to feel and experience this for yourself in these next few minutes we have together. Most people are average, decent folks who have jobs and make life run smoother for everyone, and that's fine. But sometimes people want to have more from life. They know they can accomplish more, have greater abundance and creativity, and be happier. Anyone can rise above their circumstances. The moment they decide to take action, no matter what else happens, they become above average. Quotes from great people throughout history reveal a common trait: intuition. Albert Einstein said the only real valuable thing is intuition. The only real valuable thing? Amazing when you think about his success in life. If you can reason, you can access your intuition. Sir Richard Branson, billionaire and founder of Virgin Airlines, said, "I rely far more on gut instinct than researching huge amounts of statistics." And you're going to see why within this presentation, and you're going to be able to practice that for yourself. Dr. Joe Vitale, star of the movie The Secret and the best-selling author of The Attractor Factor, said, "Tom, you finally cracked the intuition code." And I want to share that with you and as many people as possible without obligation. You'll discover how some of the greatest thinkers, writers, inventors, and business people have used intuition to enrich their lives and ours as well. Here's the thing. Anyone can do this. It's been proven over and over that we all have this so-called sixth sense. All it needs is activation, conscious activation. Stay with me through our brief presentation together and discover it for yourself. Napoleon Hill, author of Think and Grow Rich, said, "Through the aid of the sixth sense, you will be warned of impending dangers in time to avoid them and notified of opportunities in time to embrace them." Millions of people from around the world give this book credit for their success in life. The foundation of this book is that intuition is a necessity, the most powerful success tool of all. Now, keep in mind that this was the best-selling business book of the 20th century, and it still sells tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of copies all over the world. And it's not a book about woo-woo. As somebody once said to me, it's practical woo, based on a foundation of intuition. Now, here's a warning for you, though. The technique you're about to learn may seem so simple, you might doubt its immense power and the potential to improve your life and the lives of those you love. A former client of mine, Dr. Lester Levinson, who's a physicist and the creator of the Sedona method, said in his book, The Keys to Ultimate Freedom, "If we don't like what's happening to us in the world, all we have to do is change our consciousness, and the world out there changes for us." Well, that's something to practice with. No matter where you are today, you can change your circumstances for the better. In a few moments, you will hear a story that may be difficult to believe, but it actually happened. In fact, there are two stories like that in this presentation. You have far greater wisdom than you think. You're about to experience your inner wisdom at new levels. Over 30 years ago, and what was one of the most extraordinary events in my life, I met a woman in the middle of the desert in a hollowed out room under this giant rock. I'll call her Elaine. She was dressed in silk, drove a late model Mercedes, and claimed to train wizards. I thought she was nuts. Here's a woman under a rock in the middle of the desert in a silk dress, no less. Elaine said to me, "Anyone can be a wizard. It's all about tapping into your inner wisdom." Now, this was long before Harry Potter came along. Though skeptical, I sensed there was something to this. We went to a coffee shop where we talked for over 5 hours. This was to be the beginning of an amazing path for me. Elaine showed me we can consciously activate our minds to help us in extraordinary ways. This would be the first step in a long journey of discovering the secret of mysterious guidance. We all have intuition. It's the center mass of our ability to go beyond the borders of our usual perception. Intuition is the core of creativity, personal growth, and development. What you will discover with your intuition is what we call hunches or gut instinct, is really a pipeline to greater consciousness. Life experiences, imprinting by parents, teachers, relationships, education, in fact, all that we have been exposed to, have brought us to this point in our lives. Your beliefs and preferences have come together to create mindset, who you are, what you think, and how you process. In other words, who you are right now. Mindset is the result of the strongest human conditioning, which results in imprinting reality in our minds. Conscious awareness. This is what you're doing now, finding new ways to enhance your life and override imprints that do not serve you. And there are lots of those. The average person is not a master of their mindset. Mindset can be unlocked, expanded, or changed through the use of your conscious mind and by activating your intuition. That's the key to the tool. That's the tool that is the key to controlling mindset. Over the next several weeks, I met Elaine in Los Angeles with other like-minded and some very amazing people. These discussions with a NASA scientist, a plumber, university professors, doctors, homemakers, and entrepreneurs were amazing and mind-expanding for me. The meeting at Giant Rock was life-changing for me. But within the first 60 days of our meeting, Elaine vanished. And while I never found out more about her, the story didn't end there. After over 30 years, that story continues, and now you have the opportunity to become a part of this endless adventure. Shortly after those meetings, I became a special reporter for KTTV Channel 11 News in Los Angeles on powers of the mind. Next, I found myself teaching a class at UCLA's Experimental College on mind power and intuition, and it was then that I first cracked the intuition code that became known today as the Wizard's Edge, the activation code for personal development. This tool seemed too simple, which was why I had difficulty accepting its true power at the time. At first, I thought it was just about intuition. Simple intuition is a fleeting thought, like a hunch. That kind of intuition is observational and it's sort of, I wonder, or it easily is dismissed as it flies by us. This is more like what I call an intuitive tickle. Activating intuition was amazing, but that was only the tickle. From creative problem solving to working with consulting and coaching clients, intuition often saved the day for me. One day in my seminar, I was telling a story about how intuition had saved my life. As I shared the story of this most powerful event in my life with my audience, it hit me. This was more than simple intuition. I stopped dead in my tracks and paused for so long that the audience began to fidget and whisper. Playing like a speeding video through my mind were the numerous times intuition had saved my life or helped me in amazing ways. Those moments were unique and very unlike the usual intuitive tickle, and I frankly hadn't given them a whole lot of thought. Intuition wasn't just useful. The secret is that intuition has layers. Peel back those layers to experience the next one and beyond, and that's when your major intuitive transformation begins. From the beginning of my discovery at UCLA, I knew this could be life-changing for me and anyone else that I could teach to use and identify it. Suddenly, I realized the impact this story was having on my audience. As I told it, many were in tears, and ultimately so was I. And here it is. I used to fly from LA to San Diego so often that I kept a car in both cities. I usually flew out on Monday mornings on the same flight, Flight 182. One Sunday morning, I had plans to leave the next day, and I had a full schedule of friends that Sunday, many I hadn't seen in a long time. I also had a date that night with a woman I'd been trying to get together with for 3 months, but our travel schedules never came together. And finally, we set a date. Big day, big night planned. But from the moment I awoke on Sunday morning, I had an unsettling feeling that I should drive to San Diego that day instead of waiting for my flight on Monday. I tried to shake the feeling, but I just knew I had to drive down on Sunday. I felt no fear, just an overwhelming compulsion to drive instead. Without thinking, I picked up the phone and called friends in Newport Beach and told them I'd be driving to San Diego later and would they like to meet for brunch. While on the phone, I felt out of control because every fiber of my being was saying, "This is crazy." Finally, I gave in, and feeling like a fool, I canceled everything on Sunday in LA and drove to San Diego. And I never did see that woman either, ever again. 48 hours later, this was on the front page of every newspaper in America. My flight was in a midair collision with no survivors. As I watched the news reports that night, only a few miles from the crash site, I broke down in tears. While sharing this story, I realized that more than ever the importance of intuition as a conscious tool, and I knew I had to do more to bring it to the public's attention. The real key was what I later called the intuitive click, and learning how to understand it and feel it. To use intuition effectively, we have to bring our attention to that intuitive tickle. That's the first sign, and it may not be definitive until you understand the variables. I promised you the simple technique that you can use to activate your intuitive abilities, and here it comes. This is the code, the basic technique to use the dynamic power of your intuition. While we all have access to intuition, some people are naturally highly aware and intuitive without knowing why. If you're not one of those people, here's the first rule to accessing your intuition, even if you have doubts. Believe it's possible. It's okay to be skeptical, but be an open-minded skeptic. You can't advance to any higher point of learning or success if you can't at least accept that it's possible. Then, if you find the evidence, and you will if you look for it, go for it. You might find that your own experience is the beginning of that evidence, like this. Recall a time when you had a hunch, a gut feeling about something unusual that later actually happened. Perhaps you thought about someone that you hadn't seen or heard from in a long time, and then surprisingly, they showed up unexpectedly, and you just thought about them, and you said, "I was just thinking about you," or I came across a note from you the other day, and it's been all this time. Anytime you've had a unique thought that came about as a result of, let me say that again. Anytime you've had a unique thought that came about, you had a particular sense or feeling. It was not only mental, but accompanied by a physical sensation as well, that physiological feeling. That's where the term gut instinct or gut feeling comes from, and it's not unusual at all. It might be a tingle in some part of your body or any accompanying physical reaction. When you go back and replay the feeling, the physical feeling that you had at the time that intuitive click or intuitive tickle happened. One client of mine reported that her toes involuntarily curled up when she had an accurate hunch or intuitive click. If you can't recall that feeling, I'll show you another way to activate your intuitive sense and start to be able to trust it better. Your consciousness about your intuition activates your subconscious. Suddenly it begins bringing you the messages and feelings that have always been coming through. You just didn't understand them until now. When you believe in your intuition, it will begin to manifest. The first layer of intuition is that hunch or tickle in our consciousness. It wasn't consciously activated. It's just something that passes through, and most people don't know what to do with this, so they just ignore it. Now that you know the basic technique, the next step is to activate your second layer of intuition and beyond. As you become more conscious and aware of your levels of intuition, you'll naturally become more confident of your feelings about people, events, and decisions. And believe me, this is personal growth at its ultimate. And you will definitely start to see a difference when you pay attention to what I'm talking about today and what you do with it after this. You will have a heightened awareness about yourself. This is almost like an aura or energy field that you manifest that wasn't there before. You may notice a difference in your negotiations, whether for business or even with your partner or spouse. You may find that you're reading people so clearly that you almost feel guilty for having the edge. Donald Trump, love him or hate him, said, "I've built a multi-billion-dollar empire using my intuition." This is a man who takes personal credit for everything that he's done in his life publicly, especially when he started running for president. And yet he gives intuition, as many great leaders have. After time with my private clients and my classes, I realized that most people need more help and guidance to reveal their many layers or of their unique intuitive abilities. Those layers open up a powerful form of self-guidance that is absolutely life-changing. The challenge is to be able to recognize the better, excuse me, frog in my throat. The challenge is to be able to recognize better the difference between the click and the tickle and to use it more effectively. While anyone can learn to tap into their intuition within moments, without guidance, it takes time and experimentation to understand the layers of intuition and how to use it in daily life. For years, I worked with private clients and small groups and invitational workshops to help them harness these incredible powers. After years of experimentation, I created an easy-to-use 6-part program which makes it possible to accelerate your intuitive and mind power abilities. The winners in life are always looking for an edge. Since we all have untapped wisdom within us, I titled the course, naturally, The Wizard's Edge, the activation code for personal development. I want you to be able to take advantage of this program and all the benefits that come with it at an affordable price. Because you're on this webinar today, I also want to take advantage of over $300. I want you to take advantage of over $300 in special bonuses, which I'll explain in a moment. Now, here's just some of what you'll be getting in the Wizard's Edge. Instant creative problem-solving techniques, a heightened awareness to extraordinary levels, the ability to read other people quickly, even total strangers, how to influence others easier than ever before, how to have a commanding presence in any circumstance, split-second decisiveness when time is of the essence, enhancement of your life force energy, higher levels of self-confidence, control of your mindset, expanded creativity, an intuitive influence on others, how to choose when to be positively noticed, and how to be invisible when you want to be, a knowledge of things without knowing how or why. All of this plus current and future bonuses and much, much more. You can increase your odds in life and get the edge. We have bonuses for you, such as people like my friends Dr. Joe Vitale, co-star of The Secret and author of many, many books. This is a great book, by the way. How to Attain Your Desires by Letting Your Subconscious Mind Work for You. He really taps into this subject deeply. Dr. Steve G. Jones, another friend, has donated this as a bonus. I believe it sells for $79 or so on his website, Power Your Mind to Control Concentration and Focus. And that's 6 full sessions, audio and written materials for each session, plus current and future bonuses. And by the way, we have an array of other bonuses here, which we are, I don't even think is on the slide here, but you'll see it when you sign up. So I'm inviting you to join with me in an exclusive group of men and women from around the world who are expanding their mental, spiritual, and intuitive capabilities. The course lists for $197, and today is $97 with some very, very special accommodations because you're on this webinar. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute. Now, I will say that the price is subject to change without notice. There's no false scarcity here, but when we do change it, we won't have time. You may not get the notification, but this will go back to its usual price in time. So you'll save money while there's still time, $100 there, and this special bonus, a one-on-one coaching session with me, 1 hour. You see on my website, tomjustin.com, that lists at $250. And I don't take many new clients. I've only got a few openings now. But for the first 10 people who accept this offer today for $97, you'll have an opportunity to schedule a one-on-one session with me. This is about problem solving, direction in life, an intuitive session. Uh, Two clients in the space of 6 months called me the Wizard of Ahas because we get into a creative mindset that can go anywhere. You never know. But if you want to concentrate on one particular thing, some of my clients have included entrepreneurs, scientists, two MDs that I can think of, a couple of psychologists, CEOs of corporations, a few celebrities over the years, uh, a lot of different people. And this is just and most of my clients are better educated than I am and a whole lot smarter than me. But I discovered this technique and it works when I coach, and I love it, and my clients love it. And I'd like you to try it too for a value of $250 just by accepting this offer today. So you can click the order button we'll have up on the screen here shortly. And if you don't see the order button, you can go to thewizardsedge.com, and we should be able to see the order button here in a second. You can begin the first session of the course immediately, and we'll schedule your bonus session with me. I'll be in touch with you directly and after you make this purchase, and we'll schedule a time. Well, I want to thank you for joining me for this special presentation. There's so much more to come, and I also want to answer your questions. So anybody who has a question, if you see the chat box there below or to the right, you'll be able to ask a question. And we have three of the most common questions about intuition, and three of the questions that are seldom asked that should be asked about intuition, and it's not in this presentation. So I'll be sending those in a separate video. We're making those up now. So that's 6 full sessions, audio and written materials for each session, plus current and future bonuses and special webcasts. So again, that's our program, and let's get to your questions. So as I figure out how to get back here. All right, I think we're back. Now, I'd like you to see, if you can see the offer. This is new technology for me. It's a great system, but I'm not quite there yet. There we go. You'll see in the right-hand side, we've got about 4 hours for this offer, and or the first 10 people for the $250. So just click on the Add Now button, and if you want to see the layout of the course, go to thewizardsedge.com, thewizardsedge.com, and you'll see the layout of the course and take advantage of that. And let's see. And feel free to, like I said, to tap in any questions that you have. And let's see. Let's see here. Technology up. If you want to say hello, just tap in and say hi. And we have Jerry. Jerry said, you live in Vegas. How does this work for gambling? That's one of the questions that is least asked. Actually, it's not so much least asked since I got to Vegas. I've been here about 12 years. I don't gamble in Vegas. I mean, I'm not when I visited here, I used to play blackjack whenever I came as a tourist or going to meetings. And usually in the casinos, I'd go in and plunk some money down and give it to the casinos for blackjack. I really hate that game and haven't played it except when I'm hanging out with friends who are visiting from out of town. We played blackjack occasionally, but not me. And I play tournament poker from time to time. But I'm here to tell you that that intuition is very sparse when it comes to gambling. How it doesn't work is amazing, and how it does work is really kind of amazing. How it doesn't work is there's an emotional equivalent or an emotional thing that happens when people are gambling, and you can shift that. And I've seen some great poker players who use their intuition naturally, and I know they're using it or they're just crazy. And it could be the other. It could be crazy, but some of them are very intuitive. I use it on occasion, but I don't rely on it in a poker game. And there are many reasons for this. I prefer to. Well, let me give you an analogy, another story about how gambling has worked and when to pay attention to it. I do not at all like slot machines. When I was in my 20s, I probably played slot machines when I came to Vegas, but oh my goodness, it's not for me. I was driving by the Red Rock Casino on my way home one day, and I found myself turning left into the casino. And it's the middle of the week. I don't know why I'm going into the. I mean, it's the casino here. I mean, this place in this neighborhood. This is like a community center. They've got 16 theaters or more, restaurants galore, and there's a shopping center that right across the street with another huge entertainment complex and restaurants and shops and what have you. And the likelihood of my going to the Red Rock at any given day is very unlikely. And yet I'm turning in. Now, the story about my driving to San Diego, the feeling that I had was what was going on when I turned into the Red Rock. I didn't really acknowledge that. I just went with it and I wasn't looking for anything. And all I did when I got into the casino was start to walk around. I grabbed a cup of coffee from Starbucks and I'm sipping and walking and sipping and walking. And I think, what am I doing here? I thought, well, maybe I'm here to run into somebody because you run into friends all the time from out of town when you live in Vegas. Well, I was standing there thinking it's time to go, and there was a slot machine to my left, one of those Wheel of Fortune machines, and I saw the sign 25 cents and slot machine. I don't know what the heck. So I plugged in a $20 bill, and the second time I clicked the button, I got the spinning wheel. If you've ever seen those machines, they can be a little intoxicating. So second click, I get the wheel and I hit the button and it spins. And I see it go up to 2,000. And I thought, oh my God, 2,000, 25% of 2,000, what is that? And I thought, well, this is great. And the slot lady came up because the bells are going off. And she says, oh, you won $2,000. I said, $2,000? She said, yeah, this is the dollar machine. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what I was playing. It was the second round, the second click. They paid me in cash right there. I gave her a nice tip and cleared the machine and left. By the way, that's the secret to winning in Las Vegas. Leave when you win. And I thought about it later, and it was really that same kind of feeling about just a sense of that I should do it. $20 wasn't going to make a difference in my life, and I hate to throw it away. I'd rather give it to the Salvation Army than put it in those cotton picking machines. But there we are, $2,000. Another time I left a meeting at a restaurant in a casino, and I'm walking. It's 9 o'clock at night. It'd been a long day. I'm walking to the parking lot, and I see a golden light coming down over a blackjack table. I already told you I don't play blackjack in this town. Certainly not alone. Certainly not on my way to my car on my way home, and I'm tired. But this golden light, there's only one light. I mean, there's only one golden light like that in the whole casino, and I thought maybe they're shooting a video or something over there. I couldn't figure it out. So I took a little detour and walked over to see why that light was shining on the table. And the dealer greeted me. There were a few people sitting there playing. And he said, you want to play? So I plunked down some money and I played. Well, the long story short was I won $750 in less than 5 minutes. And the only way that I did that was by some crazy thing that they've got on the side, which you should never do, by the way. I've never done it in playing blackjack. When I was here as a tourist, they have these side bets or prop bets that if you hit something, odds are way against you. And I won't try to describe it, but I hit it within just a few minutes, $750. And the pit boss came over and he said, I've been here for 20 years. I've never seen anybody hit that. They paid me off. I tipped the dealer, gave everybody $5 at the table so they could make their next bet. And I left. I turned around to look at the table on my way out, and the golden light was gone. Well, those are two events that have happened to me only because of those momentary things. I don't go through and try to pick a slot machine or try to pick a game or anything like that. I just don't do it. I don't know why it doesn't work well. But I also want to give you another story. And this is a powerful story about putting your lie detector to work. And I'll get to your other questions here in a second. But these are stories that I think are very important when it comes to understanding how to how to react to that intuitive click once you defined it. And what happened for me, I had a client, an investment company in Beverly Hills, and part of my job with them was a consulting client, marketing consulting, and also part of my job was to help him hire a vice president of marketing, which I was basically filling that job until we could hire somebody. And I'd interviewed several candidates. We had a couple of pretty good looking candidates. And the owner of the company, we had two offices, one in Beverly Hills and one in the sales office was in Century City. And I was there that day, and he called me from Beverly Hills. He said, uh, I got the guy. You got to meet him. You got to interview him, because he agreed that he wouldn't hire anybody until we both interviewed him, because my client was a little impetuous. So the man came over to my office with a sheaf of superlative letters of endorsement from some of the top investment people in the financial community. He looked the part. He looked like the CEO of a Fortune 100 company, impeccably dressed, coiffed, the whole thing, very well spoken. We had a great conversation. But from the time he sat down, I had this little gnawing feeling in the back of my mind. Something's wrong with this guy. And so I started asking him some really hard questions, and he just answered everything perfectly. I told my client after the interview was over, I said, this guy looks great, you're right, but I want you to check him out 9 ways from Sunday before you hire him. If he's everything that he says he is, and it looks like he is, he's not only the perfect candidate for this job, I don't know why he doesn't own his own company. Well, the next day, my client called me and he said, I want you to have lunch with John. Call him John. And he said, because I hired him and I want you to show him how to get started. I said, oh, God. I said, didn't you do a background check? He said, I will, but he's good. I know it. I said, there's something not right. So what I did was I set up an observational methodology that we could see what he was doing. I was helping him get started in the job, and my contract was about up. I was alerted by my assistant that he was taking leads home from the office and checking out with her, not telling me anything about it. And we found out within a few days that he'd sold thousands and thousands of dollars of these packages to people around the country, and they were sending their money to some place in Dallas, Texas. Within 3 days, the FBI was arresting this guy. He was a complete fraud from the get-go. He had a long history of criminal fraud and he was a con artist. Why did I feel that way? Everything said, everything that he had, everything he presented, his conversation, everything said this guy is perfect. How did I know? Again, it's the intuitive click. When you develop that, you may not understand it, you may not know it, but you have to at least investigate it. So those are long stories, I'm sorry, but they really are very important, I think, for when you start thinking about how you're going to use your intuition on a daily basis. I have Melanie is writing a question. What can I do if I'm already intuitive? What can I do to make it better? Oh, that's a good question. You can always improve on your intuition. One of the things that I find out about intuitive people, and by the way, I'm guilty of this too, is that they take it for granted sometimes and ignore it or don't pay close enough attention. This happens under stressful conditions, under fear. If you have a fear about something, chances are you might shut down your intuition because it goes against you. I mean, you have control of your mind and your mindset. And if you're getting that intuitive feeling, you can choose to ignore it because you don't want to address it. My again, personal story on this was doing this almost killed me. Years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, I don't know how long, but Katie Couric was on the Today Show. And here she's, this dynamic young lady with a dynamic husband and cute family, and he gets diagnosed with colon cancer and is dead within a very short period of time. It's like everybody who, saw this woman on television and knew about her family just thought she was great. And here she had this tragedy in her life, and it became a calling for her. And she began to speak out about the dangers of colon cancer and being observant and taking checks, colonoscopies, and what have you. The intuitive click went off for me as soon as I heard this story. I got that feeling that it was something to pay attention to, and I shut it down. And every time I saw something about colon cancer, that feeling came back for a moment, and I shut it down. I didn't realize it at the time. It wasn't conscious. I was not taking control. I was not addressing the consciousness factor when that feeling comes. But I started showing signs many years later that there was something wrong. And of course, I went to the doctor. I did get a colonoscopy, and I did have a tumor, and it was cancerous. It took 2.5 years out of my life. And I was very lucky. I was very lucky. The surgeries were successful. The aftermath wasn't real pleasant, but I'm alive. I feel great. And had I paid attention to that intuitive click earlier, I wouldn't have had to go through that. I'm convinced of that. So even though you're intuitive, you've got to pay attention to it. Most importantly, though, a lot of people who are intuitive don't understand that there's a difference between what I call the intuitive tickle and the intuitive click. And so be ready to start addressing that in your observations of it. Address the click and the tickle. That's very important. Okay. Jamie, people around me think that people around me and my friends think that anything in this area is really weird, and I don't even like to talk about it with people. Well, yeah, I know what you mean, Jamie. I hid this for a long time. I started doing intuitive coaching when I was 21, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was doing a syndicated radio show. It wasn't syndicated yet, but I was getting interviews, and I had access to most of the movie studios in Hollywood. And I would go right to the stages and go right to the stars on the set, introduce myself, and tell them that I had a syndicated radio show I was developing, and I'd like to interview them. And really, quite amazingly, I was never turned down because they've got nothing else to do between setups. And if you've ever been in a movie studio or seen how they operate, they'll shoot a scene, and then to shoot the other side of it, they'll move the cameras around. And this is it's a big production deal to move all the things around, and the lights, and there's a hubbub and going on. And so these guys are, sometimes they're just bored. And eventually I would get an interview just by asking. They wouldn't say, how many stations are you on? They wouldn't ask me any of the questions that agents and PR people ask me, because when the agents and PR people knew that I didn't have any stations lined up, they wouldn't let me interview them. So one day I'm on the set of a series, and McLean Stevenson, who you may know from MASH, he played Colonel Henry Blake, asked me a question about something, and it started a conversation. And for some reason, I said to him, I think your agents are keeping something from you. They don't want you to see. And he said, why would they do that? I said, I'm sorry. I don't even know why I said that. He said, well, there is something that's been bothering me, and I'll check it out. About a week later, he called me. He said, can we get together for coffee? Same thing. He started asking me questions, and then I started asking questions. And what I found was that asking questions with a coaching client became an avenue for discovery. Things that they either knew through their inner wisdom that was sitting down there untapped, or they were ignoring it. And we began a dialogue. And I was referred later to a major casting agent who would start to call me when he had a difficult decision to make. And I'd come over and he'd show me a picture of the actors he was considering. He'd ask me for my opinion. I'd ask him questions. Now, this isn't like being a psychic. When you're highly intuitive, that certainly helps. But I was president of the Society for Psychical Research when I was at Channel 11 in Los Angeles, because it was a quasi-scientific group. All the board members were scientists. And what we did was we looked at psychic phenomena, mental powers. We investigated psychics. We found out that a lot of psychics weren't who they couldn't do what they thought they could do. Some of these people were delusional. Some of them were con artists. And then there were a few who were really incredibly great. And the difference between a psychic and intuitive is a psychic doesn't need and shouldn't need to ask a lot of questions. Leading questions when asked by a psychic are usually a sign that this person is not psychic and they're picking up cues. Don't get me started on that. There's a whole cadre of things that goes on with a psychic that you have to be careful of. But there are some who are really, really amazing, and I've met a number of them. But intuitive is just using a combination of knowledge that you already have that's buried within you that you start to bring up by asking others questions, allowing others to ask you questions, asking questions of yourself, being attuned to that click and the tickle. Sometimes the tickle becomes the click. Sometimes the tickle is just observational. And so you begin to deal with people feeling for that tickle. And when the tickle happens, it's really quite amazing. So I'd like you to just work on that. And of course, as a little promo for the course, that's what the course is all about, really defining that, getting into it in all avenues. It's a 6-part, 6-week course, and we have a lot of follow-up with that as well. Prince asks if is it possible to self-diagnose yourself, to do self-diagnosis with intuition? I don't know if you heard my story about colon cancer, but you get that feeling. That's when you pay attention to the feelings. And when you better define your tickle and click, when the tickle happens, then you have to really be observant and watch it. So my click was strong. And as I said, I ignored it. But when you're paying attention to it and really conscious of it, you say, okay, maybe there's nothing to it. I'll go for a physical, or Google the internet and see what symptoms you have and what they are. People can become really hypochondriacs doing this, but when you know what to pay attention to, when that click happens, it's unbelievable. So you can self-diagnose. You just don't know if you're right. And even the click, sometimes you can't be sure. This is where the mindset comes into play, because sometimes I had a client once who was a hypochondriac. I mean, a clinically diagnosed hypochondriac. I didn't know that at the time. I found out later. And I asked to be able to connect with her psychotherapist, who she was seeing on a regular basis. She didn't tell the psychotherapist about me until I asked her the question about it. I didn't know about the psychotherapist. The therapist was given permission to give me a certain amount of information. And together we were able to help her identify and get through it, because everything felt like an intuitive click about her illness. So these are things that you pay attention to. You learn to differentiate between that click and the tickle, and also wishful thinking or negative thinking or fears that you have. And those all come into play, and that's part of what we do in the course. Let's see here. Answered that. Okay, Frederick, how does happiness come, or can you find happiness through intuition? Well, you can find anything through intuition. You can find happiness without intuition, in my opinion. Little philosophical aside here. The two elements to happiness that I've learned over the years from others, and it works, is gratitude and forgiveness. Constant gratitude, daily gratitude. Write a gratitude journal. There's always something to be grateful for. In the worst possible times, I could find gratitude for something. And so forgiveness, only you have the right to forgive those who've done you wrong. And I believe in that. Somebody might cheat me, they might steal from me, they might harm me in some way. and I can step away and forgive. I may not ever trust them again. I may not ever want to be around them again, but I can release it. Forgiveness is a form of release. That's something I want to get into in another webinar, because gratitude and forgiveness are the tools to happiness. And when you can release those negative fears, feelings, and emotions through the art of forgiveness, it becomes an art when you practice it. Amazing, amazing things can happen to you, both physically and psychologically. Christian. Okay, Christian, I think I've answered that question. If you were on, if you weren't on, it's on the replay, or email me and I'll be happy to cover it. I just don't want to repeat it. I'm having trouble getting these to roll. George. It's my brother's name, but you're not him. How do I use it in my work? Okay, well, you can use it in everything. In your work, and I don't know what you do, but for instance, I had, in the class that I taught at UCLA before this was really fully developed, I had an MD in the class, and he was only there. He was very negative. He was very skeptical, and the class was held at night. So the only reason he came was because his wife wanted to go, and she had night blindness, so he had to drive her. And he would sit there, at first very disinterested. Then he started asking tough questions, really tough questions, sometimes very negative questions. In fact, some of the class, we had about 65 people in this class. It was 4 times what we expected. But his questions were great because they made me dig deeper. They made me explore. And sometimes I had to get back to him the following week and say, here are the answers to it. He never really acknowledged anything positive during the class. But he came in the first couple of classes. He would step outside and go someplace else. And this is before cell phones and checking email and stuff. And I'm sure I wouldn't have seen him at all if we had cell phones in those days, smartphones. So about a year after that class, I was in a restaurant in Beverly Hills. And as I was entering the restaurant, he was coming out. His wife gave me a hug, and she was with some friends, and they went on. And he stood there and he said, I will never admit this, and I'll deny that I ever said it. He said, but I use these techniques in my clinic. And he said, I've become the best diagnostician in my clinic. He said, we've got about 7 MDs. And he said, I just use the techniques. And he said, he's not only the techniques, but he said, by using these techniques, he said, sometimes a patient will see me for something that they have a pain in their left side, but I get to it and it really has something else. I forget the analogy he used, but he was using these techniques for pinpointing the physical being of the patients that he was seeing. And sometimes he would start just by holding the patient card or form before he ever read it or saw the patient. And there is that ability and power. And we have there are lots of exercises that you can use for getting a feeling, getting a sense, and just trusting that intuitive click and the intuitive tickle. And I didn't even have those 2 differentiations in those days. So he just practiced it, but he was ashamed of it. He would never admit it to anybody. He didn't talk about it to anybody, according to what he was saying to me. And his wife came to another course that I taught many years later. And I said, did he ever talk about this much for you? She said, I know he uses it, but he won't talk about it. So I'm amazed. I'm frequently amazed and seldom surprised anymore when I meet people who talk about how they've used this newfound ability in some cases, or expanded on an ability that they were already aware of. We're coming at the top of the hour, and I promised an hour on this. So let me just say, if you have any more questions, I think a lot of these are duplicate questions that were in there before. So I hope I've answered your questions. If there's anything, I can take one more if you're typing, and if not, sign up for the course. $250 worth of my time, an hour coaching session that we'll set up. So feel free to sign up. You'll see If you want to see the layout of the course, you can click the button here to sign up on the right-hand side. I think it should be on your screen. And if it's not, just go to thewizardsedge.com and that'll sign you up. And I'll set up your session. Congratulations to Marlene for signing up. That's great. I look forward to seeing you. Got a few more here. I've got another screen. Oh, shoot. Okay, well, we've got a couple others. Oh, Ellen and George. Okay, welcome. We'll be setting up your schedules and just click in. We've got, like I said, we're limited to 10 for this special. So let me know when you're ready. All right. Thank you for tuning in. We'll have more of these. And if you're in the course, we'll have some private webinars just for the people in the course. Have a great day, great night, wherever you are. Bye-bye.